Halloween turns upon us all, and I hope you're ready for quite a long first time for Halloween treats. There's so much to see and do. I'm sure it won't scare you, but Jesus, there's a lot of critters to eat.
A monster right there. A gremlin in there. A clown over there. A blob over there. A killer in there. A dipshit right there.
The ghosts are flying in the night. The wolves have got you in their sight. The zombies are looking for a bite. So grab yourself a tasty snack, pull up a chair, and sit right back for it's time for a Halloween treat. It's South Jersey Sam's Halloween treats.
Hello folks, South Jersey Sam here. Well, it's close to Halloween, and I figured it was best to go back to a certain video game franchise that I've been meaning to talk about for quite a while. Now, I had invited West Coast Psycho to join me here today, but he had some sort of issue. I can't exactly explain what happened. That was a weird feeling there. Not sure what that was about. Anyway, let's get down to business. Five Nights at Freddy's.
Since its release in 2014, Five Nights at Freddy's has become the most popular indie game in the survival horror genre with its simplistic gameplay and intriguing mystery. As time passed, new games were released for both the PC and eventually mobile devices, increasing its popularity. Between the dangerous animatronics, the creepy atmosphere, dark tone, and its basic yet almost nostalgic game design, there is certainly something more to this game that meets the eye.
But before we get into that, we're going to have to go way back. I'm talking decades. Particularly 1977.
In that year, a man by the name of Nolan Bushnell had become famous with the advent of a notable video game console company, Atari. The system had gained popularity, as well as a bit of notoriety, with the system and the games that were played on it. Around that time, Bushnell would work with Warner Communications, or Time Warner as it's called now, who had purchased the company. Within that time, he thought of a way to branch out video games into more places that were family-friendly, while also distributing Atari games through arcades. After making a deal and purchasing the concept from Warner, Bushnell would eventually create Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater. With pizza, arcade games, small rides, and audio animatronic characters there to entertain audiences, the restaurant became widely popular. And as time passed, several changes occurred with the company over the years, but it's still around to entertain family and friends with food and fun. However, it wasn't the only restaurant with entertainment and arcades. In 1980, Robert L. Brock and Aaron Fechter had worked on their own family entertainment restaurant called Showbiz Pizza Place, which was similar to Chuck E. Cheese's but with a different design of animatronic characters and a slightly different target audience. It too had become very popular during its time, but soon came friction between the two restaurants. Eventually, both restaurants would work together as partners, naming their company Showbiz Pizza Time Incorporated, while they would respectfully keep their characters to their own respective brand, with Chuck E. staying at Pizza Time Theater and the Rock-afire staying in Showbiz. However, because of how expensive the animatronics were between both restaurants, both had struggled to keep up with profits. So it was time to take one of the restaurants out of the picture, and Showbiz was in the crosshairs. And while Aaron Fechter was given the option to license the Rock-afire group to Chuck E. Cheese, he would have no creative control for his characters for anything the board of directors would do to the characters.
When I spoke to Gene Cram about this, who proposed to me that I give them the copyrights to the Rock-afire Explosion, the trademarks, the copyrights, all ownership of the copyrights, he said, Aaron, what you get out of this is that your characters, Billy Bob, will live. They'll live on. But let me tell you something, if you don't accept this deal and if you don't give us your copyrights, your characters are going to die. We're going to get rid of them and we're going to replace them with Chuck E. Cheese. I said, okay, I'll take that challenge. I'll take that challenge. I will do something with those characters. And I will do it without you then. But I will not just give you those characters.
So with that, Showbiz eventually faded away and Chuck E. Cheese would thrive to this very day. And while Chuck E. Cheese may still be around, the legacy of Showbiz Pizza or the band's Rock-afire Explosion have not been forgotten. To this day, Aaron Fechter's warehouse is still open, and is used to either give a tour around the place or even to make animatronics, particularly the Rock-afire band. The band itself has been revived various times, either by die-hard fans or various celebrities who needed a little backup for their own songs. Either way, they're not forgotten, just somewhat faded into obscurity.
So by now you're probably wondering, what the hell does this have to do with Five Nights at Freddy's? Well, I'm about to get into that after we take a look at a particular scenario used in the media, which TV Tropes calls sucky cheeses.
The two restaurants have been an easy target for parodies. No matter what show or movie or any other project, you'll automatically recognize these parodies. You got your Chubby Cheeses, your Pizza Planets, your Wally Weasels, your Whistling Willies, your Bloaty Pizza Hog. I can go on all day. Basically, they're all parodies to mock the poor conditions of the animatronics, the service, or the unruly children that come to these places. So instead of doing a parody of a restaurant's poor condition, why not use that for a video game scenario? And that's what Scott Cawthon did when making Five Nights at Freddy's. Before even making the game, he had worked on several different games, from Christian games to RPGs. But his magnum opus would occur after reading a review of one of his games, where the reviewer compared the character's movements to be like an animatronic. So put in a storyline about killer animatronics in a Chuck E. Cheese restaurant, and you have Five Nights at Freddy's.
So now we covered the background of the game and its inspiration, let's delve more into the game itself and see what makes it special.
Right off the bat, between the game trailers and the gameplay itself, I really like the designs of the characters and the setting. Almost like it was based on the 90s Rareware games and their promotional material. A retro and rustic charm. And of course the gameplay is relatively simple throughout the series. Look left and right from your security room, then look at the cameras to watch for the animatronics that are after you. Either they catch you midway into your shift or they get you as the power runs out. Jump scares galore. While they can be annoying at times, particularly with Freddy, there is something different about them. Bonnie and Chica both have the same principle of attacking right in front of you, but Foxy and Freddy are the only two that come after you from the sides. What's also different about the animatronics is how they look when they attack you, particularly Freddy. The others look just as freaky as themselves when they attack you, but the way Freddy looks is more disturbing. His false eyes just hide away in the shade while the white retinas shine in a very eerie way. In fact, they do the same thing with Bonnie when he looks at you in the spare parts room. I think the only thing I haven't come across in the game is Golden Freddy, unless I trigger him with the 1987 code for the custom night. As simplistic as the gameplay is, it can be very challenging unless you follow a pattern within the 5 nights, as well as the 2 extra nights given to you after beating the first 5. Between nights 3 and 5, you basically watch both doors, then switch over to the cameras to focus on Freddy, making sure he does not get close to you. In a way, it's like red light, green light, watching these creepy robots before they catch you. And while it is simplistic, there is a good amount of tension in the game. And of course, with its success came numerous sequels. And this is where I have a mixed bag about them. With Freddy's 2, it goes back into the past as we see an older version of the restaurant with new animatronics and a new setting. The challenge is certainly set up to a point, but I can't say it was anything special. There are certainly a lot of tasks to do for the custom nights as well, but the hassle is hardly worthwhile. I think what really made the game unique was the Atari-based sequences that seemed to depict moments from the past, which would only be triggered after you died. Freddy's 3, meanwhile, had decided to incorporate the Atari-based gameplay for another trip in the past, depicting what had happened to the Fazbear animatronics from the first game after you beat each level. As for the main gameplay, it's a little more unique how there's only one animatronic to watch out for, with the rest being hallucinations that can throw you off. A very unique experience also comes in the secret games that you can unlock in certain nights to help you achieve your good ending. As far as Freddy's 4 goes, it was okay, but nothing really spectacular, even with the prologue Atari sequence that you play in each day. Though it didn't really add anything to the storyline from the last 3, I will give it credit for moving into a child's point of view and how they exaggerate the look of the animatronics, which feels like you're living the nightmare he has countless nights. Seems like a good way to establish how some people might not like the Chuck E. Cheese or Showbiz characters, but I digress. And finally we have Sister Location. And while I haven't played it yet, holy shit is it different. This is actually something completely different between gameplay and pacing. There's also more humor within the game itself, between the crap control system to even a little TV time. And let's not forget...
Exotic butters. Exotic butters.
Anywho, with all these games came numerous secrets and Easter eggs hidden throughout the game, or tipped off by Cawthon. Between the identity of the motives of the purple guy to the backstory of the souls inside of the animatronics, there are numerous theories surrounding them all. Although Cawthon doesn't confirm any of the theories the fans have thought up, I think it's best to leave it be. Ambiguity works well when it comes to certain projects. Hell, if you look at some of John Carpenter's work, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyway, the success of these games came numerous forms of merchandise. It started off somewhat small, then boom! An avalanche of Fazbear merch hit stores and online shops like crazy. Merchandise, where the major profits come from. And it didn't stop there. Recently, Cawthon had collaborated with Fright Dome, a Halloween attraction located in Las Vegas, to do a full FNAF attraction, with a dark ambiance and our favorite animatronics ready to attack you. Now from what I've seen online, it looks impressive. The costumes may look cheap, but it seems fitting given the restaurant you work in the game. And then there are all the fan-made projects all throughout the internet. Now of course you'll find various fan art, like Cosberry's phenomenal artwork inspired by Don Bluth, and fan animation by die-hard fans, or those who dabble in satirical humor. But I think what I find most impressive are the fan-made games. Yep, believe it or not, there are numerous fan games made by fans that use the same gameplay and scenario as Five Nights at Freddy's. While some are cheap looking, like this one using Showbiz characters, there are a couple that look very impressive. One of which is Five Nights at Treasure Island, which is like you were in a creepy pasta rendition of Disneyland. Another interesting one is One Night at Flumpty's, which is like Storybook Land in the style of Freddy's, but with a drawing style instead of computer animation. It looks very interesting.
But probably the most interesting games are the ones made by Nixon. If you don't know him, you may recognize his work.
Aside from making computer images around FNAF, he's made two popular fan-made games. The first was Those Nights at Rachel's, and holy shit does it look impressive. The graphics, the gameplay, it all looks so smooth yet so eerie. There's also the feature of free roam, allowing you to move around the area while checking on the animatronics. There's certainly a lot of tension added to this game, and it certainly looks top-notch. But the most interesting game he has made is The Joy of Creation Reborn. Talk about a horse of a different color. This takes the scenario of Freddy's 4 and tops it in 100-fold. Between the free roaming and the disturbing designs of the FNAF gang, it's downright freaky and looks like fun.
Then of course there are the plethora of songs made by fans. And boy howdy are there a lot.
To be fair, there are different types of music that go with the songs, between dubstep, rap, rock, and many other choices. But of course there are two artists in particular that have done so many songs based on FNAF. The first was The Living Tombstone, who did very well constructing each song based more along the lines of the storyline and characters. And while the first song was performed by him, the rest of the songs were performed by other artists who certainly brought out each song with emotion.
And while Tombstone's music is pretty good, I actually prefer this artist.
I think what really draws me into DA Games' songs is how catchy and eerie it is, between the electronic voice he uses to the dark and calm melodies that occur within each song. During some of these, he brings out an interesting amount of raw intensity, making it sound so brutal and friggin' awesome. Not to mention that he holds a great amount of respect for the franchise, even so much as predicting certain moments of sister location for his song Left Behind, but I digress.
So with all this work that the fans have made, you really think they'd be calm and neutral? Well, like West Coast Psycho said,
there really isn't such thing as a perfect fan base.
When it comes to certain fan bases, the Freddy's fan base isn't exactly perfect. One in particular example comes from any videos that are about Chuck E. Cheese or Showbiz Pizza. You might find someone making a FNAF-based comment within a video, which tends to pester the casual viewer or even the die-hard Chuck E. or Showbiz Pizza fans. Then of course you'll find yourself in the Rule 34 corner, and will be just as horrified as you would with any form of Rule 34 based material. Nothing new, but still disgusting.
Now those mainly occur within the internet, and you would expect stuff like that to happen. But when you start to bring in that type of issue within the confines of a restaurant, you may have gone too far. Allow me to explain.
A couple months ago, I discovered this article in the Courier Post about a restaurant in Long Branch, New Jersey called Freddy's Restaurant and Pizzeria, where the owner has received thousands of phone calls from children throughout the US asking if his restaurant is actually Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Think of the scene where Patrick works at the Krusty Krab and the phone sequence goes on for hours and hours. You have the basic gist of how annoying it can be for the owner. While the article does mention of Five Nights at Freddy's and its popularity, it does give a negative stance towards the fans, particularly the children, who push a simple pizza restaurant too far when it comes to reality and fiction, especially when it disrupts their business. And according to the article, it's apparently happening in another restaurant with a similar name out in California. So basically, any kid who is dumb enough to think the game is based on a real-life event is dumb enough to make annoying calls to a restaurant as they are trying to run a business. It's juvenile and idiotic.
If the fans wanted to know what the real inspiration of FNAF was, they could have asked Cawthon himself.
In a Steam forum for Freddy's 4, a user asked Cawthon if he met Aaron Fector, former owner of Showbiz Pizza, and Cawthon had confirmed this, even stating that he loved Showbiz Pizza as a kid, which can confirm part of his inspiration. Even Fector had mentioned how his work inspired Cawthon to do the game in one of his YouTube videos.
He saw the characters performing, and he started his imagination going. And he thought, my gosh, what if those characters came off the stage? And what if they walked around?
So with that out of the way, it's time for the ultimate question. Does this game hold up as one of the best, or is it just a one-hit wonder?
Well, as far as indie games go, it's certainly no better than something like Undertale. But as far as horror games go, I actually find it more intense than any of the current Resident Evil games or even Outlast. It utilizes restaurant animatronics that could easily scare kids and establishes a unique idea that no one had thought of before. There's a good amount of tension and a decent challenge to it, really getting you in the mindset of how to survive. Can't say the story is perfect in any way, but I think it's best to leave it open-ended and ambiguous. Even though it pumps out its sequels more frequent than Call of Duty or Assassin's Creed, it's still impressive how Cawthon is able to program the games all by himself, and I can definitely say it's become a household name thanks to its popularity. While some people may not appreciate or admire the series in the same way as other video game franchises, I would definitely say it's worth a play and will certainly be known as one of the best indie games in recent years. Within the top 20 at least. Will there be another Freddy's game in the future? At this point, nobody knows. The popularity will fade away after a while, but it certainly won't be forgotten, especially since it has a novel and a movie coming out soon.
Well, that's all for now. It was good to finish up the Freddy's franchise and give my final thoughts on the series itself. For now, I'm South Jersey Sam, and have a happy Halloween.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, as well as Channel Frederator and Cartoon Hangover. Also, visit me and Channel Frederator on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. Just click on the annotations. And for more of my videos, visit me on Mr. Code and Friends, which is thatfellowinthecoat.com. Booyah!